Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. I'm excited to get started on today's training. It is one of my favorite tools out there, FPDS, and a lot of people consider it, basic. But I personally feel FPDS and the use of FPDS is an advanced skill set that we all should master. There's a lot of us who are out there and we're like, we're the experts, right? Pay us, etc. But the reality is we're experts because we access data like you'll see in FPDS, or we learn tools like FPDS and others and really begin to master them. And one thing I would highly encourage you to remember is that if we can do that, if we can master these tools, so can you, and so can everybody in your company, so that they're not having to pay for subscriptions or pay for me to give you a spreadsheet of data. You can master these skills yourself. And that's my purpose for today's training, is I really want to drive into sharing what I know. So let me turn off my captions and I'm going to get rocking and rolling. I want to welcome you to our introduction to FPDS.gov. This is part one. And the reason I put part one is because there's so much inside of FPDS. I can imagine doing 5 parts in there and maybe at some point turning it into a free masterclass that I put out. But part one is going to be this high level overview of FPDS. And I want to make sure I'm sharing it. I'm going to break up today's training on FPDS just into 2 sections because the second section is so big and I couldn't figure out how to break it into another bullet in here. But first thing I want to talk about is just high level, what is FPDS and what's the value to us, especially I'm speaking to small business government contractors, right? And then the second thing is I want to walk through FPDS much slower than I have ever done in the past. And I've done almost 1,000 trainings just in the last 4 years alone. And many of them were on FPDS where I go through really fast. And so today I want to slow it way down and talk about the sections that I just have spent years getting good at and knowing where they're at. And hopefully I can get you to that stage in today's training. So that's what we're going to cover down on is what FPDS is and the understanding of it. If that's what you're here for, put FPDS rocks in the chat and I'll make sure that it does. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, founder of Call Plan AI, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market after I got out of the Army as a small business government contractor. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. And this is what I want for you. And it's something I think you can have within FPDS, and especially as it relates to your sales activities, is that predictable and repeatable results. If you haven't done so already, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to have you and I following each other. If you're putting out content, I'd love to hear about what you're sharing. But more importantly, I share tons of content related to government contracting and how you can be a success in the federal market. And I put it out here on LinkedIn, both on regular LinkedIn posts like I did this morning, and then also in my government contracting success newsletter here on LinkedIn. I keep almost everything I do, I try to keep it here on LinkedIn because LinkedIn's the only place you can network with each other. Right now, we've got 40 plus people who are live. We have over 100 and I think 50 or almost 150 people registered. That's like a one-day event, and I do these events every single day. There's so many people that you can network with that have nothing to do with me, right? You just meet in one of my trainings, you connect, and you are able to build your network with each other. You build your own relationships. And so make sure you're engaging. In fact, if you're open to connecting in the chat, just say, I'm open to connecting. It gives a signal to somebody else who's here in today's training that you're open to connecting. I guess it doesn't give a signal. It flat out says it. Okay, let's talk about what FPDS is and why I think it's valuable to you. And just from a high level, why it's valuable, because there's so many minor, lower down versions. But the first thing about FPDS to understand is what it stands for. It stands for the Federal Procurement Data System. FPDS is one of the best named acronyms where the words aren't these crazy things. It's a data system, right? It's a system. It's just a computer enterprise piece of software that's tracking the data related to the things the federal government is buying, procurement, right? So Federal Procurement Data System. That's what FPDS stands for, but all of us call it FPDS. And so you really never have to worry about it again, as long as you remember the next few things, is that FPDS contains basically whatever the government is buying. I like to equate it to a checkbook. And and this is a generalist way of saying this, right? But I can look in FPDS and I can see where they're giving out money to contractors, paying money to contractors for their services or products, right? So that's in the plus side, if you will, and the negative side is money coming back in, and I see zero entries. And this is because the government uses FPDS to track contract vehicles and task orders, and especially on those task orders, they're tracking any modifications that go on. And sometimes a modification is, let's say, to add money to the contract or the task order. It's to take money away because they didn't end up needing that much money, or it's just a modification for some administrative reason that it'll have zero entry. And so inside of FPDS, you've got those two types of main items, right? Task orders is what they're actually buying, and contract vehicles, think GSA or Seaport Next Gen. This is the path of how they're buying. And in order for them to buy anything off of a contract vehicle, they need to have the contract vehicles registered in FPDS. And so that's why you're able to see them both in there. And I'll talk about them both more as we go along. The other thing to pay attention to is that for the most part, the only thing you'll see in FPDS is unclassified agency or unclassified purchases. And so you're not going to see CIA's acquisition activity going on within FPDS. But for the most part, you see, if you get rid of the exception, for the most part, you see everything the government's buying in FPDS. And that's everything they're buying above $10,000. I put simplified acquisition threshold. It used to be $3,500 was this level where basically they could buy without any kind of oversight. And then they raised that up to $10,000. And so there's these certain numbers, but inside of FPDS, anything that's above $10,000 should be recorded in FPDS. And for the most part, it is. By the way, just to compare this to SAM.gov, if you think about SAM.gov, that has just a fraction of the activity that's going on within the federal space, because so much activity happens on other portals like contract vehicle portals that might not end up showing in SAM. Compare that to FPDS, it tends to have everything they have bought. So it's awards over $10,000. The other thing that FPDS has, and what it doesn't have here, is it's a summary of the information, summary level information about contracts. And so when you think about what's in there, it'll have basic buyer and seller information, some dates, some numbers, but it doesn't have everything. It actually doesn't have a lot of really cool things that would be in there. An example of something it doesn't have are scope documents or requirement documents. So think about a performance work statement. If the government just bought something for $5 or $10 million over a course of 5 years, they did that based on some sort of set of requirements. And it would be super awesome if they put that in. That way, when we're looking at FPDS and we're looking at things they have bought before, we could see the scope and have a much better understanding of what they're buying and whether we can help. Well, that's an example of what they don't have, right? They don't have that detailed level of information within FPDS about contracts. But that's fine. That just means we have to do our homework. We got to go to SAM and see if we can find information there, or we need to go to the contracting officer or the program office and try to gather that information either through meetings and casual conversation, or you can use something called a FOIA request, which is Freedom of Information Act requests. And so you learn more about that later. But right now, for the most part, when you're looking in here, FPDS has a summary of the summary level information about the contracts that are out there. Okay, so that's what FPDS has as a tool. And really quickly on why that's helpful to us or why we should be paying attention to FPDS, I just put 2 lines here. The first thing is it's the #1 tool to see who buys what you sell. There's a lot of subscription services out there, but they pull their data from the government, and the government makes its data openly available. Otherwise, those subscription services couldn't do it. I don't mind them charging you for a subscription for advanced data analytics, et cetera. That's totally fine. I'm pro-business, right? But know where they get their data from. They get it from FPDS as an example, and you can get it from in there as well. And so when you're thinking about planning out your 2026 sales goals, et cetera, or sales activities, you want to know who's buying what you sell. Well, there's nowhere better to find that information than the Federal Procurement Data System, or FPDS. The second reason why it's super valuable is that when you're looking at this, you're using real data to be able to target, team, and win. What I mean by target is you're using real data to analyze who's buying what especially what you sell, who's buying what you sell within the federal government. And so you're targeting the agencies, you're targeting the people, both on the government side and the industry side, the winners, et cetera, because that goes to the second bullet, teaming. You're able to use this data to find people who are potentially really good teaming partners, maybe primes that you can get on future opportunities with, or companies that you're seeing are winning that you guys could team up and decide who primes or subs. And following that with this real data, you're able to pursue contracts and win them more because you have real data. This is data-driven decision-making, if you will. The government likes to use that term, data-driven decision-making, and I would turn it a little bit into data-driven sales success. Base your sales success off the true data, and you're going to increase your likelihood of success. This isn't the only tool, right? But it is the best tool out there. So again, for the fun of it, put FPDS rocks. Let FPDS know we appreciate you. I hear people sometimes say, oh, it's archaic, it looks old. I'm like, that's all data is. Data is basically a spreadsheet. If you don't know what a database is, it's a spreadsheet. It's just way more controlled, and it's got fancier features in the background, but basically it's a spreadsheet. It's got columns and rows, and it's a lot of data. And so for those of us trying to get access to the data, that's good. I would say anybody who complains about the tool doesn't understand the value of getting access to raw data. When you get access to data that is positioned the way somebody wants you to see it, then it's skewed to however they're displaying it. But when you get raw data access, and I'll show you how you can get access even more, then you're in control. Not that these other tools aren't bad. They're good. They're good. I mean, not that they're not bad, not that they're not good. But if you start with the data at the very beginning, you're going to have so much more control. Okay, let me put myself in the corner. Neil's putting Neil in the corner. I'm going to go through some screenshots of FPDS. It's never FPDS is never reliable when I go live, and so if I have time, I'll go live in there. But I wanted to make sure I had good slides that can show you. So when you go to fpds.gov, this is the screen you land on. It is not a useful screen. It is a starting point, which is fine. And what I do is inside this easy search, I just type some sort of term like Microsoft SharePoint or just the word SharePoint, and I hit enter. And it takes me to the next page, which is really where FPDS starts of value. So I'm going to walk through today's training based on this screen that you're looking at. It's the smallest screen you'll look at because as I go through other slides, I'll take pieces of this page and blow it up so it's easier to see. But this is what we're going to talk about today. Sometimes I go through my training and I just blow through this page and these sections. I'm like, oh, go here. And you come back and watch my training. Today, I want to slow it down and show you what I have mastered in this tool, right? And I'm not a genius. I am just a person who's made the time to learn FPDS, and I want to encourage you to do the same. So I'm going to walk through all the things that you see on this page, ironically, except for the stuff in the middle. We'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, so the first section I want to talk about is searching. So when you go into FPDS, you're going to search for something. A lot of us search with keywords to start. You know, at some point when you get really good at FPDS, you're going to keep refining what's your entry point. What do you like searching on? You know, it might be an agency, it might be a NAICS code or whatever, but this is what you would search on. And so this is what I want to show just initially. Inside of here, there's two things to pay attention to on that home page that we were just looking at, right? The first is this search bar up on the top where you're building a query. And later I'll show you more about the query, but at the moment it's just a high level. And when you look at a query, you see how it says description _ requirement. That's a field within data and within FPDS. And so I said inside the description field, I want to find SharePoint, anything that says SharePoint. By the way, if you've ever heard of USA Spending, the big difference between FPDS and USA Spending is you can't do this in USA Spending. In USA Spending, if I type SharePoint, it searches all fields and returns it if I just type the word SharePoint. But in FPDS, I can say, show me results that only have the word SharePoint inside the description of the requirements or whatever your keyword is, right? And again, I'll show you another time how to do that. So if you look right here below that, you'll see search criteria. And this is the box you'll see on the right-hand side. But as you're building your search criteria, it's showing it here. So description of requirement, it just makes it in a cleaner looking display for you, but you can see that you're searching on that. I went on the right-hand side and I said, well, let me add more. I wonder if I can move my face over here or something. Nope, that didn't work. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. So over here, I said, give me more fields. I just wanted you to see that search criteria building. So in here, I said description of requirement is SharePoint, and then action obligation is above $100,000. And the contracting agency is Department of the Army. So you start seeing me build these queries that are in there. A whole nother day, I will just do training only on query building, and I will work that really slowly so you understand it. But you can see down here, my query string, if you will, it expanded past SharePoint. So now you see the next field is obligated underscore amount. That's another field within FPDS. And so I start building on that. But those are the two fields on the top of the box. If I come to the next slide here, before I go to the red line, right? Those are the fields you'll see at the top here for type one or more keywords you want to search on. And then over here in the search criteria. So when you're searching, you can always understand the term is searching, or you're querying the database, or you're filtering the results. Those are all kind of the same thing. They definitely mean something different technically, but the idea is you're trying to find the contracts you can win, and you can do that through the queries you write up on top. And those are difficult in the beginning, but then they become really easy as you get experience. But the query that you write, the filtering you might do, and then the criteria that you've established going in. Okay, so that was how do you search in the criteria, or just, excuse me, it's not even how you do it. It's just that they're on this home page. I want you to understand what's on the home page so that it stops being overwhelming and it starts just becoming normal. The next thing I want to show you are the federal buyer information that's shown, and that's on the left-hand side. So let me expand that. So inside of here, you'll see on the left-hand side, there was two boxes that were shown that I highlighted. Let me just make sure you saw it. Two boxes right there, one on top of each other. And so if I come over here, the top one was the department name. And this is basically not the buyer. It's just the way they're grouping it by category. So you can see basically one of the 24 CFO agencies is what they call them. The departments, you might think about a cabinet level departments out there. But a CFO agency, if you haven't learned what those are, they're managed, their money is managed at a much tighter level, frankly, than the rest of the government. But this is just a high level category. So I might want to sit there and say, like I did with that red arrow, I want to look at Homeland Security. When I click on that, the department box on my screen goes away. And what I see are the contracting agencies that are specific components of DHS. Think about them as subordinate agencies to DHS. But if I didn't click on it and I'm just looking at those two boxes, it gives me for SharePoint, which I searched, right? Remember, I said, show me anything that has SharePoint in the description. And the results came back and said, well, look, here are the top 10 departments with the word SharePoint in those items inside of FPDS. And then here are the top 10 contracting agencies. And that is who the buyer actually is, right? You're looking in. The Department of Defense does not buy anything. The Army buys something. Defense Logistics Agency buys things. Like individual parts of it do. Even when you think about DHS, right? It's not DHS who buys anything. They have a headquarters office, and that's what you will see in these contracting agencies. But the ones who actually bought it. So I'm not going to go too much farther, but on the left-hand side, these two boxes, you'll see them over there. So as you search for things, you'll see that on the left, you can start filtering, and this enables you to go down faster. And that's what I did, is I said, filter me by DHS, and I got a different set of contracting activities. I'm able to tighten up the searching that I do. Okay, so just again, what we looked at so far is the way you're searching with search criteria over on the right-hand side on the top of that menu, and the top of the screen is the searching. Then we saw the department's full name and the contracting agencies. And so these are good ways to group things. Like I want to see anything bought throughout DHS or something. Okay, I see it. Below that, and you generally have three columns on the left, or three sections on the left-hand column. The bottom one is who's buying, right? So the incumbent or the winner. Some people don't like the term winner, but if you're a salesperson, that's exactly it. I won a contract. That's why we call it a winner. You can call it anything else another way. But these are the incumbents. These are the people who have been awarded the contract from the government. This is really good because when I search SharePoint on this left-hand side, you can see the top 10 companies that have won any contract or anything within FPDS that relates to SharePoint. And I can look at this and go, okay, Procentric, Incorporated, et cetera. I can see these companies that are in there. If I come over, by the way, the reason that number is small is because I chose the word SharePoint, and SharePoint is often within a broader project. And so maybe that's not in my description as often. If I would want to see more numbers, more opportunities, I would need to figure out what's above SharePoint, maybe the word Microsoft, for example. Okay, on the right-hand side of the screen, I filtered it down more from the criteria that said description of requirements includes SharePoint. I said also make sure the socioeconomic indicator of the incumbent, of that company that won the contract. I just want to see companies that are small businesses that have won things that have the word SharePoint in them. And so now I'm looking down and I know 22nd Century, I competed with them when I had my last company. They're a good company, and I can recognize some of these other ones that are solid companies in the SharePoint space, which is fine. This is really helpful to me because I can see who won, or I can dig further into what else has 22nd Century won, for example, and pursue some of those opportunities. Or maybe I can reach out to these companies and say, hey, I'm trying to get in. Is there room for me to be a strategic partner on future opportunities? This is what I learned when I'm starting to do the searching within FPDS and learning the data. So I'm going to come back to this red box in a second, but you see that on the left-hand side, we've got the department, the contracting agency, and the winner or the incumbent. That's really helpful information. And when you click on it, what you're doing is filtering down the results. Inside the center of this screen is where you see results. All of these pages I've been showing you, the results is that center section. And so the more you refine the searching that you're doing, or by clicking on some of these links on the left, you can filter them down even more. You tighten up the results. Right now, you see I got 7,000 results. That's too many. I want to see far fewer. Like I like to see 100 or 200 at most for what I'm searching for. Okay, so on this page, what I'm talking to you about is the section on the bottom right, and that's sorting. And I can show it another time. I might have time to go into FPDS still, depending on my slides here. But the inside here, I can see the sorting, right? And this enables me, when I usually get the data, it comes in the least helpful way. For me, I'm a big fan if I'm searching on SharePoint and I have filtered the criteria down to only see, let's say, whatever's been awarded in the last year or two. When I do that, then generally my first way of sorting is I want to see it by action obligation. I want the biggest contract because that's what I want to go after, right? But you might sort it in any other ways. You could sort it by states. Like I want to start with finding ones that are related to my state or something. NAICS codes, all sorts of things you can do. Date signed is another good one to do because inside there you can see what activity has been done recently. And so you might want to be pursuing contracting officers who have recently done anything in FPDS related to something that says SharePoint in the requirements. But that's sorting. You just click on the descending or ascending and click on it, and it sorts the data for you so you can see it better. If we work up, I talked earlier about exporting. So I have all this data, it's 7,000 entries. And I think there's a limit. I should have reminded myself, I forget occasionally, but I should have reminded myself there's a limit about 5,000 entries for exporting. But either way, you never really want to export a ton of information. If you're a typical business, so in a typical small business and you're not a consultant who's trying to look at thousands of records or something, you generally want to get your data filtered down and the criteria whittled down. So you're looking at, at max 500 and below. Anything above 500 is too much. 500 is kind of okay if you consider the fact that modifications are in here. So you might see a task order that you like. And if you're including things, it could come in with several task orders that are administrative task orders. And so the row or the count will increase, but the value to you is going to be minimal. But anyways, all you do is click on these two links over here. CSV will get you an Excel spreadsheet. in the format called CSV. And so that data is really easy. You click on it, you wait a minute or two, and in your browser, something will pop up and allow you to open it or save it. And then same thing with PDF. Don't ever do PDF because there's no value in PDF. When you're downloading data, it should always be in a spreadsheet, but you have the ability to do that, which is good. Okay, so I got 25. Oh, so the other thing I want to show you is I've been showing you contracts. And if you can see these tabs that I have highlighted on FPDS on the main place, 99.9% of us don't change these tabs. And the first tab is the one that's highlighted, which is the bulk of what we all want. We want to come in here and see task orders we can win or do our research, etc. But the second tab is the one I want to talk to you about. It's the ICD tab, and this is basically contract vehicles. So I can see contract task orders on the first tab and vehicles on the second, and I'll show you that in a second. And the third one is called recovery, and that's from an old recovery type act. So really there's no major value in there for the bulk of us at all. So the two you want to pay attention to is contract task orders is the first one and vehicles is the second one. When you click on that second tab, one of the things that I noticed, if you look really quick, I clicked on the second tab, but up on the top, I changed my description of requirements from SharePoint to staffing. And the reason I did that is because when I clicked on the tab for SharePoint, there was only one contract vehicle, right? And that doesn't do really good for training. And so I wanted to show you this, that my only requirement at the moment is staffing. I could go in there and try to say, show me ones where it's staffing and the socioeconomic is small, or it's staffing and it's out of the Army, or things like that. I can filter it down again more. But in here, I'm able to start coming down and looking at these contract vehicles. Inside of the vehicles, you're not looking at any of the purchases, but you can then begin to find out, like if you see, it's hard to see a little bit, but if you see here, it says award right below the result page. It says award on the item. And so when you click on that, you can see the awards that are in there and you can start pursuing that. This is phenomenal because when I go look for, if I'm working with a company and I'm trying to find contract vehicles they can get on, either that are about to expire in the next couple of years or that people have won, and I want them to be able to go in and try to negotiate a relationship to either get on that contract vehicle, even just by email, right? Hey, if we see an opportunity, we'll tell you about it type thing. Anything that's out there, because like I said earlier in today's training, many opportunities are hard to see unless you got the contract vehicle. And so I want to find out who's got staffing contract vehicles that I can go team up with and become aware of more staffing opportunities that I can support. And maybe not everybody's going to team with me, but guaranteed some people will. Okay, we're not going to have time to go through the live training, which is fine. I did it in screenshots on purpose so I could show it. But here's what I want you to remember about the training from today in particular, right? The first thing is that FPDS is a must-learn tool. It is a tool in your toolbox. Do not leave it sitting around. We all know how to use a hammer. Pick it up and start swinging at things. But there's some tools in our toolbox that are a little less intuitive and take a little bit more time to understand. But once you do, it'll make your carpentry work so much better, right? So ask somebody about this tool. Go back and watch my training on it and use it. And then go in and practice, right? Watch my training and pause it as you're replaying it and do something in FPDS so you move forward. Second thing is keep in mind, FPDS is telling you all about what federal buyers buy and whether they buy and who buys what you sell. And the last thing I want you to remember is that FPDS is a great way to find teaming partners, right? You could find teaming partners at a convention where you don't really know a lot about them, or you could strategically find ones that look like they're doing what you want to do and then go team up with them, right? And base it off of the data that you would find in FPDS. Hopefully this makes sense. If it did, put FPDS really rocks. Like you're really convinced how much FPDS rocks. Also, do me a favor in the chat before you get out of here. If you want me to continue this level of detail on FPDS, where I go in and I show a training on the depth of searching and criteria, or I go in and I really show the breakout of the data. If you want that, put something like more FPDS training in the chat. Just let me know you want more of it, and I will prepare it. One last thing, when you're going into FPDS and you're finding all those people, and you're reaching out and you want to start and build relationships, check out Call Plan AI. That's my company. I'd love to have you check it out and be part of it as I grow it and help you have successful meetings. Okay, I'm out of here. One last thing, I did want to thank Voltron, who was our sponsor for today's live and for our lives going forward. I really appreciate this. They're an AI proposal writing platform that helps you write proposals so much faster in minutes rather than weeks. And this enables you to spend more time on understanding the customer's pain points and objectives and really make your proposals that much more compelling, what I like to call winning proposals. So thank Voltron. Check them out. If you're writing proposals multiple times a month, ask for a demo, see how they do it. All right, I will see you in the next training.